Babes, I am literally still out of breath from the sheer unadulterated chaos of this week. I mean, my central nervous system is completely shot.
Oh, it's completely fried. Like, we are structurally compromised at this point.
We really are. But babes, welcome back. We love you, we see you, and babes, we are so glad to have you here. Cheers.
Cheers to surviving. Barely.
Barely is right. And I just need to announce to the Snark squad right now, the watermelon margaritas are officially back on deck.
Oh, they are front and center. I mean, my entire will to live right now is relying on agave and crushed ice.
And babes, I have to tell you, these things are absolutely amazing. Like, I need to unpack the cellular reaction that happens when fresh watermelon puree hits reposado tequila. It is elite summer energy.
It really is. It's a profound emotional reset.
Exactly. Like, margaritas somehow solve absolutely nothing in life, right? My inbox is still a catastrophic nightmare. My laundry is currently like a sentient pile in the corner of my bedroom. But this drink, it improves everything.
It's psychological warfare against your own responsibilities. That's what it is. You hold a glass of fruit juice and tequila, and suddenly the ambient anxiety of adult existence is just, it's put on hold.
Yes. You take one sip, and there's this immediate delusion of being on a tropical vacation. I am already planning a highly detailed, entirely imaginary beach vacation based solely on the aftertaste of this drink.
Oh, I know you are. You've got the itinerary in your head already.
I do. I'm picturing a secluded cove. I have a wide-brimmed straw hat that is completely impractical for the wind, but it looks phenomenal. I'm draped in expensive white linen.
That somehow magically repels stains, right?
Obviously. And there is a cabana boy walking toward me with a silver tray of ceviche. That is the power of the watermelon margarita.
Meanwhile, my particular strain of delusion is taking a much more financially ruinous trajectory, honestly.
Oh no. What are we buying today?
I am exactly one sip away from putting a down payment on a yacht that I absolutely cannot afford.
A yacht. You don't even like the ocean.
I know. I get seasick looking at a slightly agitated swimming pool. But this margarita is convincing me that I am, like, a maritime enthusiast. I'm sitting here wondering about docking fees in Monaco.
Have we officially entered our frozen drink people era? Because the aesthetic shift is alarming.
I embrace the frozen drink era. Let the blender run all summer long.
Let it run. But listen, the absurdity of our week did not stop with cocktail delusions. Because, babes, we just got back from rec basketball.
The physical trauma is still actively registering in my spine.
And yes, we finally wore our custom Snarkside jerseys.
We really need to set the scene for the listeners here because the disconnect between our entrance and our actual athletic performance was, I mean, it was staggering.
We felt like absolute professionals. We walked into that community center gymnasium feeling drastically more athletic than human reality dictates. The sheer swagger of strolling in with matching moisture-wicking fabric.
The jerseys have that crisp, aggressive font across the chest. The shorts hit at the exact right length.
I tied my sneakers, and for a solid 3 minutes, I genuinely believed I possessed the court vision of an NBA point guard. Like, a shoe contract was imminent.
But let's be entirely honest for a second. We strutted in there like we owned the hardwood. Did a single person in that gym compliment our custom apparel?
Utter silence. Crickets. Not a single nod of acknowledgement.
In fact, I saw the opposing team, a group of people who looked like they actually stretch regularly, just staring at us.
Yeah.
They definitely assumed we were either a semi-professional travel team or completely unhinged adults attempting to buy our way into athletic relevance.
And after 2 minutes of warm-ups, the verdict was definitively the latter. They weren't intimidated, they were just confused by our fashion.
Exactly. Okay, I need us to break down the actual gameplay because my memory of it is just heavy breathing and squeaking sneakers. Give me the best play of the night.
Oh, you know what it is? The undisputed highlight was in the second quarter. The ball was rocketing out of bounds, and you realized you were the closest warm body to it.
I utilized a terrifying combination of downward momentum and pure panic. I had a complete disregard for my own skeletal structure.
You dove, you tapped the ball back in, and then you immediately hydroplaned on your stomach across the floor directly into a stack of metal folding chairs.
The pass successfully found a teammate, though.
It did, but your landing was a biomechanical tragedy. I literally watched your soul momentarily exit your body. It was magnificent.
I will be feeling that in my lumbar spine until December. But the absolute worst play of the night belongs entirely to you, my friend.
I say this with profound humility. It does. I had a wide-open fast break. The seas parted. No defender within 10 feet. I drove to the basket, fully convinced I was gliding.
You went up for the layup, And you launched that ball with such aggressive, uncalibrated enthusiasm.
It entirely cleared the rim, it hit the top corner of the glass backboard, rebounded over the hoop, and nearly decapitated a small child innocently sitting in the bleachers.
The physics of that shot were baffling. It was an anti-layup.
What truly astounds me is the visceral realization of exactly how much cardio is involved in basketball. You watch it on TV and think, it's just a rectangle. How hard could it be?
Then you get out there and suddenly it is 3 consecutive miles of wind sprints, while large humans throw a heavy orange sphere at your skull.
I was gasping for oxygen 4 minutes in. I have come to the definitive conclusion that professional athletes deserve every single penny of their contracts. I do not want to hear a single complaint about salary caps ever again.
The cardiovascular endurance required to just run from baseline to baseline without openly weeping is astronomical. Pay them more.
Which brings us to the humbling reality. This was week 5, and honestly, we still might completely suck.
Now might is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. We definitely suck.
But babes, we were having the best time. The single funniest thing that happened out there wasn't even our own incompetence. It was that one specific guy. Every rec league has him.
Oh, the individual who treats a Tuesday night community center game like it is Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
He arrived wearing a compression sleeve and a moisture-wicking headband. He spent the entire game aggressively clapping and barking out complex defensive strategies to people who are just trying not to have a heart attack.
Watch the weak side. Box out. Run the pick and roll. And we are just standing near the three-point line, desperately trying to remember how to inhale.
I wanted to ask him, "Sir, are there scouts in the building? Is a college recruiter hiding behind the bleachers?" It's a Tuesday, but despite the chaos, I am convinced that serious, measurable improvement is happening for me.
I applaud your delusion.
I threw a chest pass today that actually had some zip on it. It didn't arc lazily, it snapped. I am evolving.
Well, I am sarcastically waiting for my natural athletic ability to finally manifest. It appears to have been lost in the mail at birth.
But this does force me to reflect on the graveyard of random hobbies we started and abandoned this year.
Do we need to discuss a sourdough starter that we treated like a newborn child for 3 weeks before letting it turn into a biological weapon in the fridge?
Do not bring up the sourdough, and absolutely do not mention the knitting phase. There is a bag of very expensive alpaca yarn mocking me from the closet right now.
A pattern of intense obsession, followed by abrupt desertion.
Exactly. Speaking of messy decisions, babes, we have received so many shady, snarky, or stupid submissions, and honestly, the Snark squad remains undefeated.
The interpersonal chaos our listeners navigate is truly staggering.
We have 2 incredibly messy confessions today. Let's start with confession number 1. I am officially titling this one, The Guilt Trip Alimony.
The floor is yours. Read the indictment.
Okay, the listener writes, I need a ruling. I dated this guy for 5 years in our 20s. He was convinced he was going to be the next great indie folk musician, so I worked a high-stress corporate job to pay our rent, buy groceries, and essentially fund his life while he worked on his sound.
Oh, I hate him already.
Right. We broke up 3 years ago because he refused to get a part-time job even when we were facing eviction. Here's the messy part. I kept paying his cell phone bill until last month.
3 years.
I felt so intensely guilty because I have this great career now, and his music never took off. He always told me I took up his creative years by stressing him out about money. Well, he finally found out I stopped paying when his phone got shut off. He sent me a massive, unhinged email from a public library computer calling me a monster who abandoned him. Am I shady, snarky, or stupid?
This is a spectacular study in psychological manipulation. It directly mirrors the toxic dynamic between Allie and Peter from the episode we're about to recap, actually.
I am experiencing pure, unfiltered emotional outrage on behalf of this listener. Are you kidding me? If you were on this couch right now, I would shake you by the shoulders.
The unmitigated gall of this man.
To sit in a public library, log on to a communal desktop, and type out an email calling you a monster because you stopped funding his iPhone 3 years after a breakup. You did not steal his creative years. He squandered them.
Let's dissect the mechanics of this guilt because it's a very specific control mechanism. This manipulative ex conditioned her to believe that being financially solvent makes her the oppressor to his starving artist routine.
Yes. He framed his own lack of work ethic as a sacrifice.
He convinced her that her desire to not get evicted stifled his genius. It's a sociopathic shifting of accountability.
So we have to rule. Is she shady, snarky, or stupid? I'm going to say paying an ex's bill for 3 years out of misplaced guilt is incredibly stupid financial self-sabotage. but cutting it off, iconic.
I agree. The sustained action was stupid, rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of boundaries. But the resolution is necessary. You do not owe him for his failure to launch. Let him write a folk song about the library computer.
Let him write a song about the library computer. Yes.
Okay, confession number 2. I am calling this the overzealous superfan.
Let's hear it.
I might have permanently ruined my life. I finally went on a first date with a woman I have had a massive crush on for over a year. Before the date, I did a deep dive on her online presence. A really, really deep dive.
Oh, no. I found a defunct Tumblr blog she ran back in 2014, entirely dedicated to a very obscure indie rock band. During our date, she mentioned she likes live music. I got excited and accidentally brought up the unreleased B-side track of that exact band, a track she wrote a 500-word essay about a decade ago on that Tumblr.
This is catastrophic.
She stopped chewing her food, looked at me like a serial killer, and asked how I knew about that. I panicked and said I just guessed. We haven't spoken since the check arrived. Shady, snarky, or stupid.
This is magnificent.
Yeah.
A perfect real-world parallel to Norman Bates and his dioramas. An individual excavating hyper-specific digital artifacts and inexplicably deploying them in casual conversation.
I have so many questions. Did they casually drop the track name or actually quote the 2014 essay? Because if you quoted her own decade-old words back to her, you belong in a federal facility.
Absolutely.
But honestly, and I'm going against the grain here, I kind of think this is incredibly romantic. You cared enough to learn about her deeply held passions.
I vehemently, fundamentally disagree with that assessment. There is absolutely nothing romantic about this. It is the digital equivalent of hiding in the shrubbery outside someone's window with binoculars.
It's just Tumblr.
There is a very delicate social contract with modern dating surveillance. We all search for each other online, but we collectively agree to pretend that we haven't. You cannot breach the fourth wall of digital stalking.
You are making it sound so clinical. But you are right. The cardinal rule of a first date is you have to act entirely surprised when they tell you where they grew up, even though you already found their childhood home on Google Earth.
You have to feign discovery. Going from, I saw your LinkedIn to, I have memorized your emotional outpourings from the Obama administration is an act of aggression.
So what's the ruling?
Aggressively, undeniably stupid, you played your hand way too early. The Tumblr URL is revealed in year 3 of a marriage, not over appetizers on a first date, and covering it up with, I just guessed, amplified the sociopathic undertones.
It is so messy. Snark Squad, keep these coming. But babes, enough basketball. Enough exposing the Snark Squad, because we need to talk about this episode.
It is time. You're killing me. Season 1, Episode 3, The Copycat. What an incredibly dense, layered, and chaotic piece of narrative architecture.
I've been dying to talk about this for 3 days. Let's just dive straight into the deep end, because the opening sequence is pure absurdity. We start with Burt McCarran.
The loudmouth local car dealer of Founders Cove.
Yes. He is in his backyard next to a hot tub, grilling severely charred, inedible barbecue. He's screaming on his cell phone, having a meltdown about the noise from the cable installation crew down the street. It's a very mundane suburban complaint.
And then the camera shifts.
A gloved hand creeps up. The killer grabs a high-voltage bug zapper, waits for Burt to sink into the bubbling hot tub, and simply drops it in. The lights flicker, and Burt is electrocuted.
Before we discuss the narrative implications, I am compelled to analyze the sheer logistical impossibility here. First, who still utilizes a neon-glowing bug zapper. Second, who positions an extreme electrical hazard that precariously close to a body of water. It is an egregious OSHA violation.
Burt essentially built his own execution chamber.
He did. But the methodology of the killer is incredibly specific. The killer takes the time to physically drag Burt's heavy, wet body out of the hot tub, lays him on the deck, and meticulously places 4 smooth river stones across his chest.
The 4 stones. When I saw those stones, I was screaming at my television because they represent Plato's cardinal virtues, and that exact calling card perfectly mimics the plot of Allie Chandler's very first Selena St. Cloud mystery novel.
It is brilliant. The 4 virtues, wisdom, courage, moderation, and justice, placed on the chest of a man who inherently lacks all of them. Burt lacks moderation and wisdom. The killer is mocking him, but more importantly, explicitly announcing their literary education.
It isn't a random crime. It's a highly calculated, real-world adaptation of Allie's early manuscript, meaning the killer has intimate, obsessive knowledge of her work.
Precisely.
But before Allie even finds out about Burt, the episode gives us a domestic scene that sent me over the edge. Allie and Andi are pulling an all-nighter at Allie's massive coastal estate, trying to finish the true crime book outline. And I need to have a serious conversation about Andy's furniture situation.
I knew this was going to trigger a reaction from me.
I am having a visceral, emotional reaction to this set dressing. Allie is a multi-millionaire best-selling author. Her house belongs in Architectural Digest. And Andi, who is actively helping solve actual murders, is sitting in the corner typing on a white plastic folding table.
A tailgate table.
Yes, it's wobbly.
Yeah.
The ergonomics are a disaster. I demand justice, lumbar support, and better furniture for Andi. Buy the girl a solid mahogany desk.
Your outrage is noted, but let's look at the psychology of the set design. That plastic table is a profound visual metaphor for Andi's precarious position. She is indispensable, yet structurally entirely unsupported.
Wow, okay.
It signifies temporary status. Allie keeps her slightly uncomfortable to maintain the power dynamic. It's a subtle domination tactic.
That is such a dark way to look at plastic furniture, but it makes so much sense. So they finish the outline. Allie gets word about the hot tub murder and recognizes the stones immediately. She takes this literal golden nugget of a clue directly to lead detective Jack Kerrigan.
Ah, Detective Kerrigan, the embodiment of institutional inertia.
I cannot stand him. Allie slacks the evidence on his desk, explains the exact correlation to her novel, and Jack just sighs and brushes her off. He calls it a bizarre coincidence. Why is his first instinct always to doubt Allie? She is literally an expert in murder plots.
It's the classic clash between institutional arrogance and narrative intuition. Jack represents standard police protocol, which inherently rejects the chaotic, narrative-driven logic Allie operates on. To admit her fictional plot is driving reality is to admit his badge is useless against a typewriter.
He treats her like a hysterical civilian. But his detective instincts do prompt one question. He asks if she has any dangerously obsessed fans.
And Allie, wrapped entirely in her own main character syndrome, casually says no.
She thinks her fans are just lovely book club ladies, but then the episode immediately cuts to her standing outside the suburban home of her fan club president, a man named Norman Bates, and I need us to discuss this name.
Norman literally Bates.
Baight's. When asked about it, Norman giggles and says his mother had a wicked sense of humor.
It is not a sense of humor, it is an act of psychological sabotage. To name your child after the most infamous, mother-obsessed serial killer is to fundamentally curse them from birth. And predictably, he grew up to be an obsessive collector of macabre artifacts.
The house. Allie and Andi walk inside, and it is less of a home and more of a shrine. Norman serves them poisonberry tea and murder morsels, which are cupcakes with little fondant knife.
Deeply unsettling.
And the living room is filled with these massive, glass-encased miniature crime scene dioramas. He built scale models of every single murder from Allie's books.
The dioramas call to mind Francis Glessner Lee's Nutshell Studies from the 1940s. But Francis built hers for justice. Norman built his for control. Obsessive fan culture driven by a desire to possess. He miniaturizes her dark thoughts to control them.
Andi is having the entirely correct human reaction. She is standing by the door, refusing the tea, giving Allie a look that says, "This man is going to wear our skin as a suit."
But Allie is blinded by the flattery. She even notices he's wearing her actual trench coat from a charity auction.
Her narcissism is a blinder to danger. This setup leads to the most brilliant twist. Jack's team finds physical evidence at the hot tub, sheet music signed by Norman, and his fingerprints on the Play-Doh stones.
Jack brings Norman in, expecting a grueling standoff. Instead, Norman is practically giddy. He gleefully confesses to the electrocution and a previous murder.
Because he is absolutely thrilled to be a suspect, he feels like he's crossed the threshold from reader to character. He thinks he's starring in an immersive theater experience. He demands to speak to Conrad Tittle, the fictional defense attorney from Allie's third book.
A profound detachment from reality. He prioritizes his inclusion in the narrative over his own civil liberties.
But Allie realizes he's enjoying it too much. He didn't do it. So how did his highly guarded stuff end up at the crime scenes?
Which leads to Allie and Andi breaking into Norman's house while he's in custody. Absolute zero regard for the law.
None. They look at the dioramas and realize the glass was tampered with. Someone else broke into Norman's shrine first.
The real killer recognized Norman as the perfect scapegoat. They used his dioramas as a blueprint, stole the stones and sheet music, and weaponized his obsession.
And the police clear Norman because he has an ironclad alibi. Security footage proves he was buying oat milk at a grocery store at the exact time of the murder. He's just a deeply unsettling man who is ecstatic to be involved.
So if it's not the creepy superfan who is the framer, this forces the narrative to look at the broader community. The Founders Cove town meeting.
The messiest display of local government ever. Let's paint the picture. Allie is the outgoing honorary mayor and passes the baton, which is a golden rake, a literal clamming rake, spray-painted gold, to Connie Newsom, the local meteorologist.
The regional specificity of a golden clamming rake establishes the deeply traditional, quirky nature of the town.
Andi leans over and mutters, "Here comes the weather slut," I gasped. But Martin Adams, Bob Mann, presides over the meeting, addressing the slow installation of the high-speed fiber optic internet by the Whitley cable crew. Everyone is furious about the jackhammering noise.
But the bureaucratic complaints are entirely derailed by Peter.
Peter, Allie's ex-husband. The sheer audacity of this man. He stands up in a public forum, points a finger at Allie, and blames her for the murders. He declares she's the only one benefiting because her book sales tripled.
It is a masterful, deeply uncomfortable display of narcissistic projection. Peter is acutely aware of his own irrelevance. By attacking the most famous person in the room, he centers himself. He needs her to be the villain so he can feel like a victim.
Disgusting behavior. But while he throws a tantrum, the episode drops a crucial connection. Melody Chopra, the bakery owner, takes the mic. She's complaining that the internet construction noise is destroying her business.
The narrative anchor. Bert was electrocuted right after screaming about the cable drilling noise. Melody aggressively complains about the exact same noise. The through line is established. Anyone who loudly opposes the infrastructure project becomes a target.
And predictably, Melody becomes the second victim. She is found dead, slumped over her grand piano in the bakery, blunt force trauma. A direct copy of Allie's second book, Love, Music, and Homicide.
This is where the mechanics of the crime scene expose the killer's fundamental flaw. I need to geek out over the musical analysis for a moment.
Please do. I know you were taking aggressive notes.
I was. The visual composition is striking. Melody dead over the keys. The sheet music is Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor. But there is an auditory dissonance. A wooden metronome on the piano is ticking rapidly, frantically.
Andi realizes the auditory math is wrong.
Yes. The tempo marking for that Chopin piece is lento con gran espressione slow, with great expression. The metronome was ticking at a fast sprint. If Melody, a trained musician, sat down to play that nocturne, she would never set the metronome to that speed. It is musically illiterate.
Meaning, the killer staged the room, they broke in, killed her, slapped the stolen sheet music on the stand, flicked the metronome to start it, and fled. They didn't understand the music.
The killer is a pragmatist, a mechanic using the books as a theatrical smokescreen for a utilitarian motive. Which brings us back to the most irritating pragmatist, Peter.
The Peter problem. The extortion subplot. He corners Allie outside the police station. He claims she owes him money, delivering this rehearsed monologue about giving up his playwright dreams to support her when she was a struggling single mom. A full decade after their divorce, he is demanding alimony. I need to rant.
The floor is yours.
Toxic, manipulative partners who blame their lack of ambition on their successful spouses are the scum of the earth. Peter convinced Allie she was the anchor weighing down his genius, but his own profound mediocrity was the anchor.
It is much easier for his fragile ego to claim he sacrificed his Pulitzer than to admit he lacks talent.
And Allie internalized that toxic guilt. She kept writing checks for 10 years. That is why I actively celebrate Andi. Andi looks Allie dead in the eye and says, "Your success didn't deprive him of anything. His failure is his own fault."
A profound moment of emotional clarity. She cuts through a decade of emotional manipulation, giving Allie permission to stop carrying a debt she never owed. But Peter's desperation escalates into a Scooby-Doo break-in.
Yes. Jack realizes the killer is following the chronological order of Allie's novels. Book 3 features a masked assailant attacking the protagonist during a massive power outage. So Allie and Andi retreat to the estate. Right on cue, a severe coastal storm hits. Power goes out.
The atmospheric tension is palpable. They arm themselves with heavy glass wine bottles.
They hear a window smash. They creep through the dark, turn the corner, tackle the dark figure to the ground, turn on a flashlight, and it turns out it's just Peter.
The tension instantly deflates into pure farce. Wet, disheveled, entirely pathetic Peter.
Breaking into his ex-wife's house in a thunderstorm? Why? To steal her industrial snowblower because he feels she owes him compensation. He committed a felony for winter landscaping equipment.
The physical manifestation of his entitlement and smallness. But this leads to a highly satisfying resolution. The breakup, part 2.
The next morning, Allie meets him at the police station. She hands him a massive final check, but says, "This is the last money you will ever extract from me. Pack your bags and leave Founders Cove forever." She calls him out for being a god-awful husband, an iconic reclamation of power.
A necessary severing of toxic ties. But the present danger is accelerating. The car bomb, the bank, and the grand reveal.
The near-death experience. Allie goes to pick up her SUV from the mechanic. Andi and Norman are reviewing book 3, and Andi realizes they forgot the ending. The masked intruder wasn't the climax. The book ends with a car bomb wired to the ignition.
Andi and Norman sprint to the garage. We cut to Allie reaching for her door handle. And this is where physical comedy intersects with thriller pacing.
Andi flies into the frame like a guided missile. She tackles Allie onto the greasy pavement, and a millisecond later, the SUV explodes into a massive fireball. Andi literally saved her queen.
The explosion serves as the catalyst for the final realization. Jack arrives. Andi starts connecting the dots. Bert, the car dealer, Melody, the baker. What did they have in common? They loudly complained about the Whitley cable crew installing fiber-optic internet.
And their businesses are right next door and directly across the street from the Sea Line Bank. The bank that is moving to a new location next month because the current building is ancient.
The realization hits them. The murders had nothing to do with Allie's books. The cable crew wasn't installing internet. They were convicted felons, drilling a subterranean tunnel directly into the bank vault. The jackhammering was auditory camouflage.
It was a blue-collar bank heist. But who hired them? Who pushed the town council to approve the massive internet upgrade?
Martin Adams, Bob Ann, the bureaucratic king.
The mastermind flop. Martin's chowder restaurant was failing. He applied for a commercial loan, the bank denied him, so he decides to rob the exact bank that denied his loan.
But Bert and Melody got too close. They realized the drills were pointing the wrong way. They became a liability. So Martin realizes a simple murder will draw the FBI, and he needs a distraction.
He stages the assassinations to mirror Allie's novels. He frames Norman, paralyzes the town with fear of a serial killer, and uses Allie's fame as a smokescreen. The absolute hubris. He thought he could pull this off and catch a flight to South America.
But the police roll up to a suburban driveway, and he is caught in his garage, zipping up duffel bags stuffed with stolen cash. Busted.
Your chowder sucks, Martin, and you're going to prison. But as the town exhales, the narrative violently pivots to the corporate aftermath, delivering the mother of all cliffhangers, the publisher drama.
Capitalism exploiting tragedy.
Allie's agent, Carlos, calls and says sales of her old fiction books are through the roof because of the real-life murders. So the publisher is indefinitely shelving the true crime book about Nash that Allie and Andi just outlined.
The ultimate corporate pivot. They demand a new fiction outline in 1 week. And Carlos casually mentions they don't need Andi anymore, wanting to cut her out of the contract with a minimal kill fee. They view Andi as an expendable line item.
But this is where Allie redeems herself. Andi thinks she's fired and starts packing. But Allie lies to her. She tells Andi the publisher insisted on adding a sidekick character and demanded Andi stay to co-write that dialogue. Allie refused to drop her bestie. She used her leverage to keep Andi paid.
It cements their partnership as a unified narrative force. But the warmth of that moment is shattered by the final twist.
Jack Kerrigan meets Allie in secret and drops a bombshell. He ran a deep background check on Andi's missing mother, Renee Walker. He ran it through every database. And Jack looks at Allie and says there is nothing. Not a lack of activity since she disappeared. Absolutely nothing since birth.
Renee Walker does not exist. It is a completely, meticulously fabricated identity.
A ghost. The woman Andi is dedicating her life to finding was living under a fake name for decades. Who was she? What was she running from?
It fundamentally rewires the entire trajectory of the true crime plotline. It's a brilliant narrative hook.
I am completely obsessed. Okay, we have to transition because it is time for our first debate, the You're Killing Me Award. This goes to the character who caused the most pure frustration this week. I am going first, and I am arguing for Peter.
I fully anticipated this. Present your case.
The unmitigated gall of this ex-husband, breaking into a home during a storm to steal landscaping equipment, demanding alimony a decade later. He is a leech. He publicly humiliated the woman who financially floated his failed career. Every time his smug face was on my screen, my blood pressure spiked. Give him the award and banish him.
I hear your plea, but I am pushing back forcefully. I nominate the publisher and agent Carlos. Let's look at personal annoyance versus systemic evil. Peter is a nuisance, but capitalizing on real-life, bloody murders to force a manuscript in 1 week, that is predatory capitalism. And trying to cheerfully fire Andi after she risked her life, ultimate corporate trash behavior.
Okay, valid analytical point. Culprit greed is gross. But Peter stealing a snowblower, too pathetic to forgive. We will let the Snark squad decide in the comments. Moving to the main character delusion index. Rank 3, somewhat aware.
Rank 3 securely belongs to Detective Jack Kerrigan. He is reluctantly starting to realize Allie and Andi are competent, but he remains delusional in insisting on rigid police protocol in a town populated by flamboyant supervillains.
So true. Rank 2. Highly delusional. Martin Adams. Bob Mann actually believed he could rob a bank using a fake internet crew, commit 2 homicides, frame a superfan, and catch a casual flight to South America without anyone noticing. The arrogance.
The logistical nightmare disguised as an Ocean's 11 plan, but rank 1, maximum delusion.
Norman Bates.
He was arrested for a double homicide, facing life in a federal penitentiary, and he was thrilled, vibrating with joy because he felt like he was starring as the antagonist in a Selena St. Cloud novel. He asked for a fictional defense attorney. That is a detachment from reality requiring immediate medical intervention.
I love that for him. Next debate. What would we have done? The ex-husband extortion scenario. How do you handle a toxic ex who blames you for their ruined life and demands a paycheck?
Our methodologies will diverge drastically here.
Absolutely, because I am choosing chaos. I am not calmly handing him a final check. I am dragging that industrial snowblower to the town square. I am plugging it in, pointing the ejection chute directly at his face, and blowing 12 inches of icy snow right into a smug expression. I want a scene.
And that highly emotional response is why you would be arrested for assault with a landscaping tool. My approach is a calculated icy ghosting maneuver. You do not inform him. You simply sever the financial artery, have a retained attorney send a terrifying cease and desist, freeze him out until he has to get a job at a regional Starbucks. Allie was far too generous.
You are so incredibly cold, and I deeply respect it. All right, final debate. Snark Squad Court. Putting one cast member on trial. Today's defendant, Martin Adams, the mastermind flop.
The evidence is damning. Opening a terrible chowder restaurant, hiring felons to jackhammer public streets, dropping a bug zapper in a hot tub, bludgeoning an innocent baker, framing an innocent superfan.
I am the prosecution. Maximum penalty. Ruining a bakery's business is a crime against pastries. Robbing a bank is a federal offense. But interrupting Allie's writing schedule, forcing her to pull an all-nighter on a folding table, unforgivable. Lock him up.
As the defense, I jokingly argue that given the state of rural broadband, high-speed fiber optic internet is a human necessity. He lied, but for 1 month he gave founders Cove hope for faster download speeds. Is that not a public service?
Objection. The internet was a lie. It was just dirt and lies.
Sustained. Martin Adams is guilty of being the messiest bank robber in the history of New England.
I sentence him to life in prison. But his cellmate is Norman Bates, and Norman just talks at him about fan fiction 24 hours a day without pausing.
Cruel and unusual punishment. The Constitution reaps.
Babes, this episode was a masterpiece of chaos. Thank you to the entire Snark Squad for hanging out, surviving the basketball trauma, and dissecting these plot twists.
Your continued presence makes our own delusions manageable. We appreciate you.
Go to the comments right now. Number 1. Would you genuinely wear a custom rec basketball jersey in public? Number 2. Which confession was messier, the alimony or the Tumblr stalker? Number 3. Which cast member frustrated you most? And number 4, are you team emotional or team analytical on handling an extortionist ex-husband?
Choose your alliances wisely.
Reminders, babes. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your messiest bestie. Keep sending those shady, snarky, or stupid stories. We live for the drama.
And sit with this final thought. Who do you genuinely think Andi's mom really is? Start dissecting, because someone with a federally untraceable identity doesn't just disappear by accident. They disappear by design.
Stay messy, stay delusional, and we will see you on the Snark side.